your first 1,000 hours of meditation practice. I wanted to make this video just to address what to expect as we grind, or as you grind to these 1,000 hours, this milestone on the path. This is a very precious phase on the journey, a very precious phase of the work, and it can really make or break whether you are successful with this practice long term or whether things kind of fizzle out and you give up. I think having a proper context to hold this practice is incredibly important for the long-term sustainability of your practice, because eventually you will get to a point where the results of meditation are just completely undeniable. And not only are the results of the practice undeniable, but just sitting down to practice itself is going to be some of the most joyful, wonderful time spent. And so not only will you have copious amounts of benefits in your everyday life, but just the actual activity itself of sitting down and being silent and being with yourself, it's going to be wonderful. And once you've hit that phase of practice, it more or less takes care of itself. The whole thing goes on autopilot. But this is really geared more towards people who have not quite reached that phase of their practice, who have not quite reached that inflection point where there is this exponential takeoff in the results that you're getting out of practice, where there's not yet this autopilot nature to the way that meditation starts to diffuse in your everyday life. Just to give a little bit of context from where I am coming from, I did the math and I've meditated more or less around 1,700 hours thus far. So if you feel like that's not quite enough to be talking about this topic, hey, I totally get it. You can click off the video. But I guess in a way, I'm making this video as though I'm talking to my past self. Like, what would I have wanted to hear before I got up to 1,000 hours? And that's really that's how I'm trying to hold this video. This is also coming from not only direct experience, but also just working with multiple meditation teachers, multiple enlightened masters, doing just tons of research on different meditation techniques, reading multiple different books on meditation. So that's really where I'm coming from with this video. And I'm hoping that just by providing this context, again, this can help give the context needed to really have this practice take off. So at this point in meditation practice, the primary objective is to just keep the goal. Okay, so daily consistency is key here. We want to make sure that we're not skipping days. We want to make sure that when we commit to sit down, we're actually following through with our word and building that equanimity, building that integrity with, when I say that I'm going to sit down and meditate for 20 minutes, I sit down and actually formally participate in the activity itself. This is critical. It's almost like this phase of practice, and really well after 1,000 hours, this is still going to be a struggle, but more or less we are building the discipline needed to see the fruits of our work later on down the line. So keeping the goal is critical at this phase. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is that results are going to be very slow in terms of how the meditation sessions themselves are playing out. You will feel boredom, you will feel anxious, you will feel like you want to be doing anything else other than meditating, but that's completely okay. And not only is this okay, but that is to be expected. Part of what this practice is giving us is the ability to hold space for difficult emotional states, difficult mental states, because even when meditation or life is going really well, inevitably life does throw us curveballs. This is just part of what it means to be alive. Like, we all have our own individual struggles and challenges that we're going to work through. Part of the fruit of this work is the ability to hold space for these life circumstances and be totally at peace, be okay, be happy in spite of the challenging circumstance. That being said, even though meditation itself will be very challenging and we should be expecting this, what will be very immediately obvious is the benefit that meditation gives us outside of our formal practice. So you will notice that you have an ever-increasing ability to concentrate your mind at whatever task you commit to. You will find yourself spontaneously just falling into moments of mindfulness, seeing beauty where you may have missed it before. Something as simple as, you know, being outside in nature, or looking at a nice cup of coffee in the morning and just feeling like, damn, like I love coffee. I love this coffee. And having just an enlivened experience with that coffee. I mean, there are plenty of examples to go around, but essentially, even though the practice itself will be challenging, what we should be looking for is, how is this practice affecting my everyday life? Because a lot of times the effects are quite subtle. It's difficult to see just how significant of a dent the practice is making on our lives. And it's only if we fall off track, if we stop practicing, do we notice like, oh wow, you know, this was really working for me. Why did I stop? So again, just to reiterate, even though the practice itself, yes, it's going to be challenging, but you will find that the effects that it have, the positive effects that it have, are immediate. And so this is something to keep in mind just about the nature of meditation, is even from the beginning, you will see results. But what we think, the newbie mistake when it comes to meditation, is that we think that the immediate results that we are getting are all of the results that the practice has to offer, and this couldn't be further from the truth. So this is another thing to keep in mind as you're going through these first 1,000 hours, is that these first 1,000 hours are not indicative of just how deep this work goes, the depth that we can travel within our own minds, within our own consciousness through this practice. Another important facet of this work, and especially something that we don't know in the beginning just because we're inexperienced, is that the practice ebbs and flows with how challenging it's going to be. So some days things are going to be a total grind, and other days it's going to feel easy. We are not going to want to get up off of our cushions after we are done meditating. What's really important to understand is that right before, or excuse me, typically right after going through a period of very arduous practice, where practice just really feels like a grind, these are often the spots where a big breakthrough is about to happen. It seems like not much is changing. We're showing up daily, sitting down, it's a total grind, not much is happening, and it's typically in these moments that we have a breakthrough point, and suddenly we open ourselves up to a new level of equanimity, or a new level of concentration, or a new level of mindfulness, a new level of happiness, joy on the cushion. It's really important in these moments to develop the austerity and the discipline to not turn away from the boredom, or to not turn away from the discomfort. Unfortunately, and honestly, fortunately, meditation is hard. It is a grind, and that's not something that we should be afraid of. That's something that we should embrace. And I'm not trying to say that as some sort of like macho, masculine, like, hey, we gotta fucking like hashtag grind. It's gentler than that. It's softer than that. If you look at the pace of life moves very slowly. Evolution takes time. And that's part of what makes it such a rich journey. Like if we were to go on hikes and within the first 10 minutes make it to the peak, who would give a shit about the peak? I mean, the peak would still be cool, but like part of what makes the peaks on a hike so amazing is that we spend 2 hours or more or whatever hiking up to the peak. It's like, wow, I just went on this journey. I just went on this adventure. That's part of what meditation is giving us, is the adventure of the challenge. So a couple things. One, embrace that challenge. Feeling into that challenge, being open to that challenge is very, very beneficial and should be expected. And as we open up to that challenge, it actually softens and starts to actually, the best way I can describe it is massage our being. Like it's actually a form of purification to sit in pain, or to sit in boredom, or to sit in discomfort and find peace within it. So that's number one. But number two, oftentimes this is right before, like I said, just a huge breakthrough in our practice. And so if we were to give up, or if we were to stop practicing, or if we were to get distracted and just stop or whatever, back off, if we are gun shy at this discomfort, this is oftentimes missing out on a huge breakthrough. The analogy that I like to think about is right before an earthquake. If you think about it, tectonic plates are shifting. And on the surface of the earth, it does not seem like much is happening. It doesn't seem like anything is changing at all, actually. But just when enough force with that tectonic plate shifts, the earth shakes. That's sort of what's happening in our minds as we meditate. Not much is going on the surface. We more or less feel the same. It's a grind or whatever, and then just boom, we have a breakthrough, we have an insight, we have some sort of catharsis, healing and awakening of some kind. These first 1,000 hours are not going to be indicative of the lifetime of practice. So, you know, for example, if you're meditating an hour a day, you'll reach 1,000 hours within 3 or 4 years. I'm not doing math well in my head right now. You'll reach those 1,000 hours pretty quickly. So it's important to realize that if it only takes you 3 or 4 years, well, you have your entire life left to practice meditation. So realize that these first informative infancy years of practice are really not indicative of where the practice goes in the long run. Because again, what is 3 or 4 years compared to 40 or 50 or 60 years? And the other thing to keep in mind about this is, and this is something that I've very deeply observed within myself, and it is a phenomena that I've heard communicated by my meditation teacher, my primary meditation teacher, which is the non-linearity of your results with practice. So there is an exponential growth curve to meditation practice, and it's really important to realize that once meditation practice starts taking off, man, it really starts taking off. And so to just have patience with yourself as you work through your bullshit, through your trauma, through your discomfort, through your dis-ease with sitting and the stillness, because eventually you will hit a point where it just takes off, man. And at that point, it's game over. Like, meditation practice has you. And this is where we really start to see results. Now, how can we actually expedite our results through this very arduous phase of 1,000 hours? Well, one, have a daily strong meditation practice. I recommend an hour a day or more. Typically, for a complete beginner, and really for this first 1,000 hours, I would recommend sticking to an hour. There's no need necessarily to push beyond an hour unless you feel like it. If you feel like it, by all means, go beyond. But 1 hour a day is very significant. And it's also something that is challenging, but it's doable. It is doable if we find the time. If we are serious about this work, we can find a single hour. There are extenuating circumstances where perhaps an hour is not reasonable. I understand. But I think for the average individual, an hour is reasonable. And if you are to commit to an hour, you'll really start to have those results take off faster than someone who is only doing 15 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe 45 occasionally. There's something about this 1 hour mark that really starts to pay dividends. I've talked about it before in other videos, but having a strong daily practice is going to really expedite your results. The other thing that I highly recommend, and this is something that I did not do in the beginning that actually I think hurt my progress, which was we need to go on meditation retreats, man. Meditation, there's something special about practicing meditation in a retreat setting. Something very special about building that momentum across those days, just meditating non-stop. We enter into spaces of mind and consciousness that are just typically inaccessible, given the way that we are living our daily lives and how much activity we have, how much stimulation we have, and not stimulation in terms of smartphones, TV, internet, that kind of stuff. I'm just talking the stimulation of what it takes to keep food on the table and survive. We have to go to work. We have to take care of our houses. We have to pay the bills. We have to take care of family members, etc. There's a lot going on in our lives, not a lot of time for stillness and silence. So giving ourselves that space is an enormously powerful stimulus. This is the one thing that I really messed up on in my early years back when I started. Going on a retreat, every time I've been on a retreat, it has just skyrocketed me into new depths of practice. What I would recommend is once a year, going on a retreat once a year. Once you get done with one retreat, go on ahead and sign up for another one. Put it on your calendar. Do not procrastinate with signing up for the next one, and just make that an annual thing, an annual schedule. If you can, go to more than one a year. I think once a year is completely reasonable for most people, but if you have the opportunity and if you have the desire, by all means, go to more than one. Over the course of, from September 2020 to April of 2021, I ended up doing 3 meditation retreats, and doing 3 that back to back was mind-blowing, like just utterly mind-blowing. So if you have the opportunity, by all means, but I think a good, at least conservative amount would be once a year. The other thing that's important is making sure you have a technique system that works really well with you, that resonates with where you are on the path. I remember when I first started, I was really into concentration meditation. Like, I was really just focused on mindful breathing and accessing the various wonderful states of mind that can come from very deep concentration states. And at that time, that's what I was really into, and that's just what resonated. Even earlier than that, I was practicing what I call the 1-hour meditation technique. I have a guided meditation on my channel that goes into that technique. But that's what I did for the first 6 months. And at that time, that's what resonated with me. But as I've practiced, I've changed the techniques that I've used. And I actually think this is really powerful, because when you start experimenting with different techniques at different points in your practice, this helps you actually learn about meditation practice overall. It gives you a holistic, unified, integrative perspective. So don't just blindly follow one teacher or one technique system. Learn multiple systems, learn multiple techniques, and determine which ones resonate with you at which point in your life. And the last recommendation that I would make, I'm like hesitant to make this recommendation, but I just have to be honest and transparent. Take psychedelics. Take psychedelics. Experiment with psychedelics. They will affect your meditation practice and empower it. I experimented very heavily with psychedelics in my earlier years of practice. I have not been practicing that long, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, but I was doing psychedelics quite intensely there for a while, and they had a very profound effect on my meditation practice. I felt like I could go deeper because of the insights, the pointers, the perspectives that they provided. So if you have the opportunity and you have the interest, psychedelics are an incredibly powerful tool for this work if you do them with reverence, respect, intentionality, and discipline. So I would recommend them for enhancing your meditation practice. So yeah, man, that's all I really had to say. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts, questions, or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. If I missed anything, or if you want any more elaboration, yeah, please comment that in the comment section below. It helps not only you, but it helps anyone who's reading the comment section. If you want to ask a personal question, please feel free to email me. My email is in the description box below. If you like this style of content, please subscribe. It really helps keep me motivated for the channel. But other than that, I don't have anything. So yeah, until next time.